Welcome to Backyard Oasis. I'm Amelia Hurd and I'll be your host for the show that is all about water. We're going to show you how to create your own backyard oasis. Not only will we quench your thirst for aquatic gardening, but we'll also give you great ideas on general landscaping, lighting, maintenance, as well as the latest trends on how to decorate your home with water. On today's show, we will join Chuck Thomas, our resident aquatics expert, as he installs a gorgeous waterfall complete with pond, plants, and hey, we may even throw in a couple of fish at no extra charge. We'll also be talking with Fred Spicer from the Birmingham Botanical Gardens, where he will introduce us to some very interesting plants. And as always, we'll be taking a few water breaks in between all of the hard work to give you some great facts on water, fish, plants, and who knows what else. So let's get out onto the job site where Chuck is going to float us through this project.
There's water in the brook running down to the stream. There's a bullfrog on the bank, baby, singing songs to me. There's fish down underneath that water, baby, saying, oh man, you'll never catch me. When water falling down from the sky up above makes everything green, makes my flowers fall in love. Saw a thorn in Mr. Rosebush, baby, saddle up to Miss Foxy Glove.
Today's show is sponsored in part by Firestone Pond Guard Rubber Liners.
Cool, clear water. Water running down the mighty Mississippi.
Hey, you aquatic neophytes. Here we are out on our first job. And the main point of any water feature, of any installation, is your location. Just like a good business, a good water feature is location, location, location. So we always come out into the area where the homeowner would like to have the water feature. I'll ask a few pertinent but very important questions, which are, what areas of the house do you utilize the most? You know, in this situation, we've got a screened-in porch, we've got an open patio, we've got a second-story window, we've got some windows to the right side of the house. So I want to make this pond and this waterfall so that it is in a direct correlation with all of these visual points. Once we get that location, then we'll come back out, you know, make our marking, do our set out, do our layout, go back inside and see how visible the feature is from inside of the house, from the screened-in porch, and from the patio. This is something that you want to make sure that's visible year-round. I mean, you know, even in December when you're having a Christmas party, you're kicking the smokers outside, well, hey, give them something to look at. So this is a real important fact, and that's the #1 fact. So we're going to get started on our project and show you how it comes along. Once the location of the pond is determined, we use some landscaping paint to outline the pond and waterfall area. As you can see, I'm laying out the waterfall. I like to have a minimum of 5 feet. That may seem like a wide waterfall, but you'll see how quickly that area will be taken up by the rocks as they are placed along the inside of the fall. As I lay out the pond and waterfall, Stephen, Fernando, and the crew will remove plants that might be damaged because they are located in the fall area or too close to the pond construction site. When moving an established plant, try to gather as much of the root ball as possible. This will ensure a greater survival possibility for the plant. As you can see, shade-loving plants such as these ferns are doing quite well in this area. Hopefully our pond and waterfall will look natural nestled in this fern glade. For this project, a small excavator from a local equipment rental store was used. We used some small pieces of plywood to protect the existing sodded yard. This piece of equipment is light, easy to operate, and is a real time and back saver. We use the excavator to get the major part of the dirt excavation done. It's convenient to drop the dirt in a wheelbarrow and just push it off. Almost all the dirt is removed in one day. Won't you try that with a pick and shovel? The price of a daily rental is well worth the savings of labor and a price of a sore back. We use a site level to determine the bottom depth of the pond. Like zone plantings for different species of plants, there should be a zone digging for pond depths. Here in the sunny south, the pond depth of 18 inches is adequate for an ornamental garden pond. All types of plants and fish can be grown and enjoyed at this 18-inch depth. Of course, that wouldn't work in Minnesota. There, an 18-inch deep pond would freeze solid during the winter, so 24 to 36-inch pond depth would be required to keep the pond from freezing and killing the fish. Once the rough excavation has been done, the sculpting of the waterfall and pond is completed by hand. This will allow a smooth side and bottom in the pond as well as in the waterfall. Once the shaping and fine grading of the pond is done, a 3-inch coping shelf is cut 1 foot wide into the sides of the pond. If the pond is constructed on a slope, one side of the coping shelf may be deeper and might require an extra layer of rock to match the ground level on that side of the pond. This coping shelf is a very important part of the pond construction.
Hey, it's time for your first water break. Did you know that dragonflies eat hundreds of mosquitoes every day? Well, you'll definitely want to see them in your garden. We'll be right back.
Once the sculpting and coping shelf has been cut out, the underlayment is placed in the pond. I prefer to use an 8-ounce non-woven geotextile underlayment material. This is a heavy-grade material that won't rot, adheres to the sides, and provides protection in the bottom of the pond and won't attract insects like old newspapers or other materials that might rot. The liner is then dropped in place. I prefer a 45 mil EPDM pond liner such as the Firestone Pond Guard liner. This is a fish-safe material. This is the most preferred material available. It's flexible, easy to use in all temperatures, UV resistant, and has a 20-year manufacturer's warranty. Once the liner has been placed in the pond, continue to place liner up the fall. The liner should be placed so the top piece lays over the bottom piece. Once the liner is in place, work is ready to continue on the pond. Before proceeding, I like to place an extra piece of liner on the bottom of the pond to protect it during the remainder of construction. You know, it's like my grandfather used to say, it's easier to prevent a problem than fix it. This extra piece of underlayment can be removed and disposed after construction. A wall is then laid on the pond bottom. It will serve as a wall for the filter. Once the block is laid, a row of coping stones are also placed on top of the block wall. They will help disguise the block work. The hosing for the waterfall is kept inside the liner at all times. By keeping the hosing inside the liner, we're making my grandfather happy and eliminating any future problems from leaking hoses, and as if it were to leak, it'd have nowhere to go but back in the pond. Rocks are mortared in place using a ready-mix bag-type mortar. This is the stuff I call the idiot-proof. Just add water, and even I can't screw that up. This mix is simple, easy, and strong enough to bond the rocks to the liner and lock them in place. It's not a solid bond, but it'll give you enough time to yell at the dogs and kids and tell them to get off the rocks. Notice how the hosing runs inside the waterfall liner as we discussed earlier, and rocks are mortared on top of it. Once completed, you won't be able to figure out which side of the fall it's on. As you can see, we're just about finished the waterfall. Gee, in only 12 minutes. Well, that's dog minutes. Everything is really taking shape on the waterfall, so now we'll turn our attention to the filter construction. Now we'll show you a little more about this particularly efficient and easily maintained biological filter. We will modify a large box and use it as our pump pit and attachment for the French drain. I always say life's about details. Well, this is one of those details. Use some flat black spray paint to hide the blocks. Once it's filled, you'll never see them, believe it or not. Well, once Picasso here is finished, we'll move on to the box placement with the French drain attachment. The waterfall hosing is fed in the box with enough left in the box to allow the pump to be pulled out for service and maintenance. The French drain is then cut and fitted into the back of the box. Here, this gives you an excellent view of how water will pass through the gravel bed and into the back of the box. Stones are then added in the bog area. Surprisingly, very few of the stones will fall out of the opening in the blocks. The hosing is completed and mortared in the waterfall. Flat stones are pressed in a thin bed of mortar, and a preferred size 8 shoe seems to work best, but not required. Excess liner is trimmed as a trial run of the waterfall is done. This trial run allows for a check of leaks or adjustments that might need to be made to the sides of the fall.
Now we're going to let Fred Spicer, the Executive Director at the Birmingham Botanical Gardens, introduce you to some great plants.
Okay, we're here out by the entrance of the Birmingham Botanical Gardens, and we're looking at some of the hibiscus that we have on trial. In the last couple of years, we've planted a number of different hibiscus species and cultivars, and we've got them out here planted on the margin of Sonat Lake, which is the lake that's right at our entrance. These plants love a moist soil. Although they'll live in average garden soil, they get bigger and better if the soil is consistently moist. Now, a couple that we're going to be looking at today are hibiscus red flyer, which is a hybrid that grows 12 feet high and has these dinner plate sized bright red flowers all summer long. We're also going to see hibiscus copper king, which is one that's very, very commonly available, but as we'll see, it tends to be eaten a little bit by the insects. So even though the flower is wonderful, you have a little leaf damage to put up with. Another one that we're going to look at is a hibiscus relative called Abelmoschus manihote, and that's a botanical name that's a mouthful, but I think you'll remember it by the name of cream cup. And it's a beautiful, beautiful plant that we actually bought as an annual, but it's been perennial for us for 3 years in a row now, and it's taken a temperature of 6 degrees Fahrenheit in the winter with absolutely no problem. And the last plant we're going to look at is a southeastern native plant called Hibiscus grandiflora, which has an excellent leaf, has sort of a powdery covering on the leaf, blue-green foliage color, and then these big pink flowers that are absolutely wonderful. These are great plants for the summer garden. Again, they're great by the margin of a pond or a pool, but they don't require wet soil, and these are going to be great additions to your garden.
Welcome back to Backyard Oasis. So far, we've seen our waterfall begin to take shape. Now let's get some ideas on what plants would work best for this project.
We're over here at our job site now, and we finished our waterfall and pond construction, and I'm over here with Ira Mitchell, and he came in behind our work and more or less put the icing on the cake. So Ira, if you would, tell us a little bit about the landscape selection you used and a little bit about your plant material.
It's a shady situation, so we've added shade-loving plants.
Right.
We have some tall plants. We have Fatsia and French hydrangea. We have medium-sized plants, ferns, autumn fern, holly fern. We have Christmas fern. Then we have some creepers that are going around the edge of the pond. Right. For example, creeping fig. We have some maidenhair fern for the wet places.
Yeah, as far as our rocks that we have chosen for the job, they were natural moss rocks they collected out of North Alabama, and we've installed those along the stream bed. So just like your plant material, as we get more moisture and it gets more acclimated to our site here, we're going to get a lot of moss and lichens regrowth on our existing rock. I see we've got a few plant selections. Could you tell us a little bit about what you've got to put in the ground?
Well, these are two varieties of HOSTA. This is HOSTA guacamole, and I believe this is Francie.
So can we make guacamole out of the guacamole, you think?
I wouldn't try that. And then this plant is an annual caladium, and it serves almost as a light in the garden. It's bright at night and will help illuminate the garden. Since
these plants don't grow or swim in water, I know nothing about them. So you're just telling me that as long as we're going to get 4 to 6 hours of sunlight, these can be installed in any homeowner's backyard.
That's correct. Even without a water garden throughout the South in a shady situation, these plants would work.
Right. I know the homeowner just loves what you've done. You know, I've loved what you've done, and I hope you've enjoyed working the project with us.
I have. I've enjoyed working with you and with your crew, and I've enjoyed working with the homeowner, and both of you have had plenty of ideas to help me.
Yeah, well, we certainly appreciate it. And now let me try a little of this guacamole dip here. No, I don't think that's good guacamole dip.
Hey Chuck, I've got some real guacamole here at the Superior Grill in Birmingham, Alabama. Well, we're not really here for the food, although it is some of the best. We're here for the Flamin' Fountain, located in the outside bar. Let's go inside and talk to Javier about this cool water feature.
Superior Grill opened up in 1983 in Louisiana. We opened this place here in 1995, and we've been busy ever since. We wanted to have the Flaming Fountain as an attraction for children as well as for grown-ups. What we do have is water and fire, and most people get amazed to see those two things together and the flame not being out. Most people like it, especially children. And in the summer, because it gets so hot, we turn it off. But in the winter, in fact, we use it to keep the place up out on the patio.
So the next time you're in Birmingham, be sure to check out the Flaming Fountain at Superior Grill.
Well, it's time for another water break. Did you know that there is a National Goldfish Society? Check out this website. When we return, we will see our finished project, so don't go away.
As you can see now, we finished our project. The landscaper's really done a great job. We've got all our aquatic plants in, and I'll give you a brief overview of the plant selection and material and why we used what we did. In our water lily varieties, we've got 2 tropical water lilies. I've got a night bloomer, which is the one that is open now. It's beginning to close. And I have a day blooming tropical, which is not quite yet started blooming, but it will be blooming within the next couple of days. I always like to put one of each one in. You know, being the hard-working Americans we are, we never get home till 6 or 7 in the evenings. By that time, your day bloomers are closed, and we don't get to enjoy a lily. Well, we can solve that problem by putting a night bloomer in. If you put the night bloomer, he's going to open 7 or 8 in the evening, just as the day bloomer is closing, and they're going to stay open till 9 or 10 the next morning as the day bloomers are starting to open. So by using a night and day bloom combination, you've always got a lily that'll be open. The other plants that we've got in here, I've got a water poppy, which is another submerged plant. Both them and the water lilies have to be submerged. You can't see them, but in the bottom I have what I call the most important plant, which is the ANACHARIS. It's an oxygenator, but more importantly, the ANACHARIS absorbs nitrogen, which is produced from waste products from the fish and from fertilization of the plants. So the ANACHARIS submerged to the bottom, the lilies are sunken in pots, and then we've got our bog plants, which are planted in our gravel system, which we showed you during the construction phase, how we simply put the pump, which is located down in this opening area. It's drawing water through this gravel bog, and all these plants are simply taken out of their pots. Most of the dirt is washed off. We scratch the gravel back, and you can see you go back just an inch or so and you've got a pocket of water. Well, we take our plants out and put them down in the gravel bog, which is completely saturated with water, and then cover them back up. So we have no standing water that can cause any mosquito problems. All of these plants have been more or less selected the way the landscape selection was done. Plants that are semi-shade tolerant. We have a spike rush, which is the first one here, which is only going to get about 18 inches. We've got a variegated maiden cane. We've got a pickerel, which has a purple color bloom. We've got a clover. We've got a dwarf, BAHLI, CANNA, and then we've got an umbrella palm. All of these plants are hardy, and they'll come back next year. They'll die back during the winter months, but they will come back. So you can see, you know, we've got a fairly wide selection of plants that are available, and these plants have just begun to grow. After they've been in and gotten established, you know, we can come back at the end of the summer, and all of these plants are going to be, you know, 3 to 5 times bigger than they are now.
We're about 5 minutes from downtown Birmingham, and you know, when you come home from work, you really don't want to hear all the truck traffic, and just kind of like to forget you're right here at the city.
Right.
And the sound of water, it's just so peaceful.
I know we've already spoken with Ira, your designer. When he came in and you guys were discussing, you know, how you wanted to do this, what kind of did you relay to him as far as your feelings for the plants and how you wanted it to look?
I really wanted it to reflect Alabama plant life. You know, just lots of pretty magnolia type ferns, hostas, things that you might find growing in the woods in Alabama.
Right.
But we didn't really know what that was going to look like or what it should look like. And I really appreciated that you had so many ideas. We could, you know, how to see it from the deck, you know, things that we might not have thought of.
Right.
You really designed it.
That's always my goal, is to try to create something that is visually, it seemed to be as natural as possible, although, you know, most folks coming over to your house are going, no, you don't have a really nice big creek flowing right into a pond adjacent to your house. Gee, what luck. You know, why didn't we get this lot?
Right.
But, you know, no, it is to create something that aesthetically looks as natural as possible and just really works with the environment and the, you know, and the landscaping and the flow of the land as well.
We just love it. You know, you may remember when you first came in, I was a little nervous because it looked like a river was coming through my backyard, but now it just really blends in, and we're real happy with it. We can't wait to come home in the afternoon and feed the fish and just hear the sound. We're really enjoying it.
I hope you've enjoyed our show today. We'll be back again soon with another great aquatic adventure on Backyard Oasis, where it's all about water. Thanks for watching.
Water, cool, clear water. Water running down the mighty Mississippi. Oh, water. You know there's some down there in Mobile. Water, baby, come on, give me a sip.